back working on the Tonga Green L322 Range Rover, and what we just showed you was on the display air suspension inactive and lights on that we don't want on, and that's this one here. This light here. Now normally if I press that button, that light will go on and off, and what that does is saying that the up and down movement is locked, and so the up and down movement right now is locked. We're at normal ride height, and if we go and look on the outside of the car, we'll see the car's riding at the correct height, but this air suspension inactive message and that light there and plugging in the code reader tells me, I can't remember what the code is, but it says reservoir pressure remains constant. Now I can hear the pump attempting to run when I clear the codes, but after a minute maybe we get the error message and we get the air suspension inactive. That light comes on and that's it. The car will maintain its ride height, but it can't go up or down, and it can't do auto leveling. And so if you think about this logically, the only thing that can be wrong is that the compressor, which is in the boot underneath the spare wheel, isn't producing enough pressure to increase the pressure in the reservoir, and that is honestly a very common problem, and it's an easy one to fix, and that's what we're going to do next. I'll see you at the back of the car. Right, here we are in the back of the car. Here's your air compressor. This is a compressor that puts the pressure in the system to pump up the airbags, and it's only held down by three fixings, one here, and one up there, and the connections for it are over there. We've got an air line coming in here, and we've got an electrical connector, and so what we're going to do is just undo these fixings, unplug those, and then we're going to turn this beast over and have a look inside, and I'll show you what's inside it and how we're going to fix it. I do honestly think I know what's wrong with this. We'll find out in about an hour from now. If you disconnect your compressor pump, as I've just done, with the battery still connected, when you restart it, you're going to have even more faults. So make sure you've got a code reader so you can clear those faults, because it's going to register the pump's not there, it's open circuits and all kinds of things like that. So yeah, either disconnect the battery before you do this, or have your code reader ready. Right. The pump, it's a kind of sealed unit. It's in this box so that you're not listening to it banging away in the back of the car all the time. I'm just going to peel that part away, and there is our pump. This is an electric motor. This is the actual moving pistony parts. And these are all electronic controls of reservoirs and so on, ultimately out through this pipe here, which is sending the pressure to the reservoir. And so what we're going to do is we're going to undo these three fixings here, lift this out of the box, and once we've done that, then we can undo the bolts which sit it in this cradle. There's one there, there's another one around there, there's another one underneath. We undo those, we can lift this off of its cradle, which is this piece here, and then we can undo the bolts which secure the piston, the cylinder head to the block, and then we can get access to the piston itself, where there's a piston ring which I suspect is either cracked or severely worn, and we've got a spare for it. So we've separated the cylinder head and reservoir from the electric motor, crank and conrod and piston. And so this is the piston, and it's got a little flappy valve on the top of it, like a two-stroke engine would have, and it's got this piston ring that's all the way around the piston there, and these are made out of phenolic material, and there's a gasket on here, and that's the bore. The bore on this one's actually really polished, and it's got some grooves in it. This one might actually be past its best. This might be too bad to repair. That'd be a shame, wouldn't it? I don't really see this is hard anodizing on an aluminium here, and in there, I don't know if you can see it, but the anodizing has been worn through, and we've got bare aluminium showing in that area on that side. I think ultimately this pump has had it. This has mechanically failed, not just sort of service items worn out. But we're going to do a get your home repair. So this is bagpiping Andy's compressor repair kit. And bagpiping Andy sends you a new piston ring and a couple of different gaskets depending on which version of the pump you've got, and some bolts and a tap, which we don't need. And that kit, I think, if you look on eBay, is 25 quid. We don't need that gasket. We need this one, and this one's going to replace the red one in there. As that one comes out, new one, same diameter. The black one, it doesn't feel as thick as the red one that came out, but it's also harder. I think it's going to be fine. And anyway, I've used these kits many times, and every time I've used one of these kits, it's repaired the pump. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look really closely at this piston here, this bit here. So here's our new piston ring, and here's the old one, and you see that it's got specific cutouts on it which kind of overlap a little bit when it goes into the bore. The bore is not as deep as that rebate, and the little pin, I'll try and show you underneath here, there's a little pin underneath there. That's what is going to retain it. That's better. That feels better. There we go. And so the pin now sits on top of that shelf and against that edge, and so stops it from rotating. We've got that rotation which the old one had, and there you go. That's it. That's literally the repair is done, and now we can put it back together again. So there we go, that's back together again. There's the old piston ring with all its wear and grooves and whatever. I'm not going to reuse that. I'll put the new O-ring on it. Everything's back together again, just like that. I'm going to drop that back in here. It's easy to remember which way round it goes, because this side has the I'll show you that a bit more closely. This side has the clips for the cable routing bracket, and then there's three holes here which these points are going to drop over, and there is actually a little bit of a trick to put it in. So now, keys in hand. Let's see what happens here. Keys in ignition, ignition on, check brake pads. Right, so as I expected, air suspension and self-leveling suspension inactive, and no lights on here now. So this is, if you see no lights on here, you've got a definite coding issue. So, code reader. And I have to tell you, there is no simple fix for a coding error. You just have to clear the codes. Can you see that all right? Manually select 5 series E39 health report. There we go. Right, so it's now reading all the modules. For me it will be a couple of minutes, for you it will probably be a few seconds. Electronic ride height control, 5 faults, that's good. There we go. Right, we're actually interested in the ride heights, but I'm just going to have a quick look at these because I didn't do this after the last work I did on here was all of the vacuum piping, so it's just interesting to see. Glow plug system is often with an older engine, we've got that on the list of things to do. EGR, that we know that wasn't working properly. Pre-supply pressure monitoring and rail pressure monitoring on engine starts. Now I'm hoping that we've cleared those codes, but we'll find out in a minute. Ride height control, accumulated pressure, here's your code, 74EHC. This is your code that we're interested in. This was the one that told me what was wrong with it. Accumulator filling request, accumulator pressure remains constant. High pressure drain valve supply, which was the thing that we unplugged back there. Supply high pressure drain valve, compressor temperature sensor and drain valve. These 4, 08, 18, 24 and 07, they're all faults that we created when we unplugged the pump while the battery was still connected. So we're going to clear the codes. Oh, you can hear the pump banging away in the boot there. Fault code complete. We've still got the engine codes, which is interesting. That's engine fault codes. All cleared. And the compressor is running in the back there. I can hear it. So what we're going to do now, steering column, seat memory driver, radial transmission fault. That's the one that moves the steering column up and down. And sure enough, it's not working. In and out is working, but up and down isn't. So we'll need to investigate that. But that is the only fault on this car that's reported. So I think that's pretty good, don't you? Right, what we're going to do now is we're just going to pop that up there. The compressor is running. We've now got the right lights here, just that one and nothing here. If I press that, it goes on and off. so I can lock the suspension height or unlock it. I'm going to shut the driver's door. Oh, actually the boot's open, so it probably won't. Oh no, there we go. It's just adjusting my suspension height now. It's just adjusted the front, and now it's adjusting the rear. Pump's just come on again, so it must be safely building pressure in the accumulator for it to be able to do that. We've got no errors on the dashboard. Right, I'm going to go and shut the boot. Right, how we doing? Everything seems correct. I'm going to stop and then restart and do another code clear. We've got a check brake pads warning, which I knew about. I think that's a broken wire. Check tail lights. That'll be a bulb. And no further errors. Good. So we're just going to run the health report on here again, see if it comes up with anything, and then we're going to go for a little test drive. Again, I'll fast forward this for you. It'll be about 5 seconds. For me, it'll be a couple of minutes. It's working on it. Remember, this is all about getting this car ready to drive 250 miles down to Wales. It's got an MOT on it for another 3 weeks. It's taxed and insured. We just got to put all the shit together and make sure that it's ready to go. So, only 2 faults showing up on here. The steering wheel up and down controller, which we know isn't working, and smooth running controller for the engine. We'll just clear those codes. I expect they'll just come straight back. Yeah. Okay, so with that in mind, now in case you're wondering, I'm using, remember this is a BMW built, or maybe early JLR build, M57, so it's a Td6 engine in this 2005 Range Rover. I'm using the C-Reader Elite, which is made by a company called Launch, and it's the Launch C-Reader Elite BMW. If you have a later model car, or you've got any of the later V8s or anything which have got the Jaguar engines in them, you'll need the C-Reader Elite Land Rover, not BMW. But these are only like 100 odd quid, and invaluable. They allow you to set up suspension and everything else. I'll put a link, I'll put my affiliate link for this in the notes. Let's go for a little test drive. We're not expecting any problems, but at the same time we're completely expecting problems because we don't know anything about this car. We've only fixed the bits we know about so far, and this will be, other than the 120 odd mile drive where I picked this car up and brought it back here, this will be the first time this car's been driven again. And what I'm interested in finding out on this little test drive is, have we solved the problem with the engine primarily? Because we had a fault with the engine where it was randomly cutting out which I was pretty convinced was a problem with low pressure side of the fuel system, and all the vacuum pipes which were messy. And we did all the vacuum pipes, and we changed the fuel filter. So let's see how it goes. It's all feeling good so far. I just realised I left all my tools back there, so if it breaks down on us, it's screwed. I have got my phone with me. I can always call the AA. They love me. But listen, this is driving nicely. It's responding to throttle input nicely. Gearbox is shifting smoothly. We've got the pad wear indicator on the dashboard, which I know about. I have had a look at the pads. We've got 4 brakes and 8 pads, so I think that's probably one of the wires for the pad wear indicator is damaged or worn through or unplugged. Now what I want to do is get this up to a reasonable operating temperature. We haven't done the thermostat housing yet, so we do need to change the thermostat. That's the job for this afternoon. So we're not going to get the engine up to its full operating temperature, but what I want to do is get it up to somewhere close to its normal operating temperature, and then hold the speed at about 50 miles an hour and see if we get the engine judder that we were getting before, because that's a right giveaway of us still having problems with the low pressure side of the fuel system.
Later.
But no, this is working very nicely. So let's just, we've got a couple of minutes to drive back to the car park where I've been working on this. So let's just go through some of the other faults. The suspension on this car is completely shot. I'm having to constantly correct. So every bushing and bearing in the suspension is going to need a refresh. You can also feel it when you're braking. You get a judder on braking. That's all to do with worn out suspension components. The brake discs themselves are rusty through lack of use. So again, that will clean itself up just with a bit of driving. I'm going to fix this steering column. I think this seat heater's not working. We need to fix that. We need to do a complete set of fluids on the engine and gearbox and the transfer box and the diffs. I don't know when that was last done, and filters. I've not changed any of those at this stage. So basically the only thing I've done to this car to take it from something which was more or less undrivable to being able to do this with it today is I've changed all the vacuum pipes and the fuel filter. That's it. So my total investment so far is about 30 quid in fixing this car. I bought a new thermostat for it, which we're going to do. I think the thermostat is about 25 quid. It's going to be a couple of hours work. And that will then allow the engine to get up to a proper operating temperature, and that will improve our fuel economy massively as well, because at the moment it's fluctuating around the sort of 22, anywhere between 27 days, which was the long run I did when I picked it up, that 100 odd mile run. But actually I'm very pleased with this. This is working well. Isn't it lovely when a plane comes together? Suspension's working, we've got no issues with that at the moment. I do think we're going to need to fit a new pump, because that, you know, that's a longevity of the car fix. We can plan to do that, but the pump seems to be working fine at the moment. When we get back to the car park, I'm just going to try raising and lowering the suspension, check that it can actually jack itself up and lower itself and put itself back on its standard ride height. Just the initial dab of the accelerator Whoa! Editor Stephen here. I'm a fool. Before you all start putting all those comments down there saying that judder has got nothing to do with the engine. I know, right? Hindsight's a wonderful thing. A little bit of time has passed, bit more research. I know it's not the engine. The engine's fine. It's the torque converter. And I've got a new one to put in it. But that'll be for another episode. Let's get back to the action. That could be smooth running, that could be injector offsets, and as I say, that can be temperature related, but we'll have another look and read of codes after this little drive and see if it's thrown any up while we've been driving. Remember, the only one we had was the one for the steering column and the engine smoothness. Back at the car park. Oh, I love working on cars in a car park in December. But as you see, none of this has been particularly hard work, not strenuous, and as long as it's not raining, it's actually not a big deal to do any of these jobs. So let's have a look. Let's pull in here, and we're going to have a look at codes. Didn't break down, so we didn't need the tools with us, which was good. Okay, I'll put you on there. Can you see that all right? Health report. Okay, so we've got engine control module, smooth running controller, and pre-supply pressure monitoring, and the steering column. So the pre-supply pressure monitoring, I think we still have a problem with the low pressure fuel side. At this stage, I'm going to assume that as it's not actually cutting out, I'm going to assume that it's the pump that is underneath the passenger side rear seat, left hand side rear seat, is probably just tired and isn't pushing the fuel, because you have two pumps in this. One of the pumps lifts the fuel out of the tank, and the second pump pushes the fuel up to the filter and through the filter to the high pressure fuel pump, which is on the engine. And this pre-supply pressure monitoring, code 1260 DDE, we'll go and look it up and check, because I've been thrown by these things before and ended up looking in the wrong place. But pre-supply pressure monitoring, code 1260 DDE, I think it's going to say it's a low pressure fuel pump issue, and or it will say, you know, other things will be things like a blocked fuel filter and stuff like that, but we know we've put a clean filter on it, and we know that the fuel is clean as well, so it's not blocked up again. So I think on the whole this has been a successful couple of hours work. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to go and look up this code, and in the next segment of this video we'll talk about that and what we're going to do about it. I'll catch up with you in a little while.